This video is part 2 of the Group POI tutorial video. If you haven't yet watched part 1, I recommend that you start with that video before watching this so you understand what we're talking about. Part 2 will include how to create your own Group POI. Part 1 shows you how to use those POI that you create or that other people have created. Step 1 of creating your own Group POI is to have a flat height map. You can do this in many ways. The easiest, I think, is to just use Teragon to create a flat height map, but you can also do one using an image editor. It is also possible to use a map that is not flat, but it'll be a lot easier for you to have the map be flat for doing this. If you're going to do this using Teragon, I recommend starting with World Generator 3 because it's already the smallest preset, and we're going to be disabling most of the commands, so it just makes things a lot easier. If you save your preset after doing this and call it something like flat height map, then you'll have it available for future use. We're going to look at the expert tab here, and what we want to do is disable most of what's on here. We're going to start out underneath where it says create flat height map, and we're going to start to disable these commands. You want to disable any command that creates the height map or changes the height map in some way. We're also going to disable all the towns in POI because all we need is the terrain. And we're going to disable the roads as well for the same reason. Now I did disable create empty road map. I'm going to correct that, and I'm going to enable that again. We do want the empty road map to be available. So as you can see, I left everything in the red, and I left create flat height map. I left the flat water map, as well as the environmental and biome map and zone map section here. I left the create empty road map, create player spawn, and I left everything else below this. Now if you're planning on doing this multiple times, you can save this, call it something like flat height map. That way it's ready to go the next time you want to use it. Before running this, go to your basic tab, and you want to make sure that the world that you're going to use is something that is not already created. If it is already created, this will be in red. If that's the case, change it to somewhere else. As long as it's not in red, you're safe to use this name. I'm still going to change it just so that I can easily recognize which world this is. We'll then click on run, and we'll let this run through. It's not going to take very long to create this flat height map because we're not really doing much besides just a flat height map and some biomes. The biomes really don't matter because we're not going to use them for anything, but you do need a biome map in order to load this into the game. Now the reason we're going to use a flat height map instead of a regular height map is because the flat height map makes it easier to place the POI while you're creating the group. If you have terrain in the way, it can make it harder to create the POI and get them placed the way you want. It can be done that way, but it's just a lot easier not to have to worry about that. I'll give this just a little bit longer to be finished, and then the next step is we're going to load this map into the world editor in 7 Days to Die. That is where we're going to place all of the POI, tiles, or parts that we want to have in the group, and then we'll be able to use those to create a group POI. I'm going to jump this ahead to save us a little bit of time and just skip to the next part. In this next part, like I said, we're going to be in 7 Days to Die in the world editor. Now that we're in 7 Days to Die, we want to go to Editing Tools and open up World Editor. From here, we want to find the map that we just created. I called this the flat height map test, so that's what we're going to choose. and we're going to click on Start. Now I'm going to jump ahead so we don't wait till this loads. Once the game is loaded up into the world editor, you can look around and you see that we have a flat terrain to make it easier to work with. I'm going to start by clicking the H button. This will let me fly by holding space. C will take you back down. This just makes it easier to work with. First thing we're going to do is we're going to point where we want to have the POI placed, and we're going to press the Z key, which is going to make a selection. We're then going to hit Escape, click on Prefab Browser, and we're going to pick the POI that we want to use. So I'm going to do this lot industrial 02, and then I'm going to click Place. And now you can see we have that POI placed on the map. Now we want to place another one next to it. I'm just going to use the same POI and place them next to one another for this example. But you would, of course, use different POI parts and tiles to set it up how you want it to look. Once you have the place that you want, click on Escape, choose the POI that you want to use, and then click on Place. And if you have the position correct, everything's going to line up side by side if you want it to appear side by side. You can have gaps or move things around based on how you want it to look. Now in this example, I'm now going to place one more of these. I need to find where to place that. Once you have the marker where you want, choose your POI and click on Place. Once again, if you've got your placement correct, everything's going to line up the way you want it to. For this example, I'm just going to use it like this, so that it's easy to see when you place it in Teragon that it's placed in the same way. So once you have all of your tiles, POI, and parts placed, all you're going to do is press Escape, click on Save. You'll see it says World Saved, and then you can exit the world editor. Once you've exited the game, you need to go into the folder where your world is saved that you are using, and you're going to open the prefabs.xml file. This file can be opened in Notepad, Notepad++, or any other text editor program that you have. When you have it open, you're going to see something like this. In this example, you can see we have the 3 lot industrial 02 POI that we placed, including their positions and rotations. The positions don't really matter because they'll be placed on a new map as a group at another location with a different elevation. What's important is that they are correct in relation to one another. It's important that this prefabs XML file only includes the POI parts or tiles that you want to use in your group. If it includes anything else, you'll want to remove those things. If you've done this on a blank map, you will be all set because it will only have the POI you placed for your group. But if you use an existing prefabs.xml file, such as if you really liked a city layout that you have and you want to copy that entire city as a group, you could do so, but then you'd have to remove all other POI tiles and parts that were on the map. It's also important to try to keep any POI tiles or parts confined to a specific area, meaning that you don't want to have a single POI tile or part that is a few kilometers away from everything else, because when Teragon tries to place this group, it's going to place the entire thing as one group, and the larger the area it is covering, the harder it will be to place the group POI on the map because of the hills, mountains, or rivers, or lakes that may be on that map. So try to keep it confined to one area, and keep in mind that smaller will be easier to place than larger. This file here, the prefabs XML file, is going to become your XML file for the group POI. It's going to act just like a POI XML file does and allow Teragon to place this group POI as if it's a single POI. Once you have this, you're going to want to copy it and rename it, and it's going to need to be called rwg underscore group underscore whatever you want. So for example, you might call this rwg group mygroup.xml. It doesn't matter what your name is for the group. You could do even mygroup01, however you want to do it, but it does need to start with rwg underscore group underscore. And that's going to be the file name that you're going to use for each group that you decide to make. Each group should also have a unique name to avoid any kinds of problems. So try to use names that other people who make groups may not also decide to use. So this example saying my group is probably not a good name because someone else may use that same name. You should save this in a location where you can easily find it. If you are including this in a mod with custom POI tiles or parts, then it's a good idea to save this within that mod folder. That way you can share it with others and include the files with that so people can use them as well. If you do include it as part of a mod, it would be a good idea to include it in a folder such as Teragon or Group POI, something that people can easily find and recognize as being the group for Teragon to use. But you can name it anything you want. Once you have that saved in a location where you want with a file name that's valid, the next step is to go File, New, and we're going to create the Group POI property list. This is going to be a single line for each group that you want to have. So if you are making a mod with multiple variations, you may have different lines for different groups. If you're doing a single group, then you only need one line for that file. To get that line, we're going to switch over to Teragon, and we're going to go to the Expert tab on any preset that you want to use that has a Read POI property list line. You're going to click on that line, and you're going to choose one of the POI in here. It doesn't really matter which one. I'm just going to choose this first one here, and I'm going to copy it using Control-C. I am then going to switch back to Notepad, and using Control-V, I'm going to paste that in. The first thing you want to do now is change this name from the POI to the group. So for example, if we did that RWG group mygroup01, we're going to call it that as well, but we're not going to put .xml. If you called it something else, just make sure that the name is the same as what you called the file name. So you should have rwg underscore group underscore and then whatever you are using. The rest of the line is not too important as long as it includes each of these parameters: POI, distance, biome, region, road. Even some of those may be optional, but it's just best to include all of those. Also note that you are going to be placing this in a specific location on your map. It's not going to be based on biome or region, so you don't have to worry about which biomes or regions are listed here. Once you've done this, you're going to now save this file, and this should be saved in the same location as the group XML file that you just created. The file name of this one does not matter, but it should be something that's easy for you to recognize or easy for other people to recognize. So since it was for my group 01, you may call this my group 01 property list. And you're going to save it as a text file using the .txt extension. It does not have to be any specific format for the file name the way the XML does. So you don't have to use the name like this. You can use spaces if you want. That doesn't matter. Only the XML has to be in a specific format. Once you've saved this, these are the two files that you need in order to use the group within Teragon. You would then use those two files as explained in part 1 of this video about using Group POI, and you'll use those with the create POI command in Teragon as explained in the first video. That's all there is to create your own Group POI. However, keep in mind that this is just a very basic example of how to create a Group POI. You are normally going to have a lot more POI tiles or parts as part of your group, and it's going to take a lot longer to create that group and get everything placed correctly in the world editor. However, you only have to do that one time for the group. Once everything's placed the way you want it and you save it, now that group can be used multiple times on multiple maps without having to go through all of that effort again. So it does take a lot of time and effort to create that group to begin with, but once done, you'll be able to use it over and over without having to worry about creating it again each time. I would also recommend checking out tutorial videos about using World Editor. You're going to want to learn all the tricks for placing the POI and tiles and parts quickly and easily. This video is not intended to show you how the best way to create that is. It's just designed to give you an example of how to create the Group POI. So I recommend looking up some other tutorial videos specific to using World Editor that'll make it easier for you to create the Group POI or any other maps that you may want to make. I went ahead and added this Group POI to the same map that we did earlier. As you can see, it's just a flat map, so there's nothing interesting on it, but it shows that these POI have been placed in the same layout as they were originally in the world editor. Another thing that you should keep in mind when making your Group POI is whether or not you want roads to attach to the group. If you want Teragon to attach main roads to your group once it's on the map, then you are going to need to add a gateway tile to your group. A gateway tile is how Teragon knows to attach main roads, so you will need to attach that gateway tile to your group in order for Teragon to attach main roads to the group. If you instead want side roads attached to the group, then you should add driveway parts, just like you would if you create a wilderness POI, and Teragon will then attach side roads to those driveway parts. If you add multiple gateway tiles to your Group POI, main roads will be attached to each of those gateway tiles. However, if you do multiple driveway parts, side roads will not always attach to every driveway part. You'll usually only get one driveway part attached to a side road and the rest won't be used. So keep that in mind when you're deciding how to have roads set up. If you want multiple roads attached, the best way to do it is to use main roads with the gateway tiles, and you can have one side road attached if you would like to do that. If you have any questions or need any help using Group POI or anything else with Teragon, please check out the chat and help channel on Teragon's Discord, and someone will be able to help you.